there, Mantaray79 here, and I'm back with another deck profile video for the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game. In today's video, the deck profile I'm going to be doing one for is Premium Formats, Dimension Police, Zeal with cards from P Special Series 01, P Clan Collection Year 2022. Alrighty then, let's get started. Alrighty, let's get on to the main deck. For the main deck, let's first go with the starting unit. For the starting unit of this deck, we have the Grade 0, Larva Beast Zeal. Starting unit, Grade 0, Larva Beast Zeal. His skills are, the first skill, when ridden on top of by Eye of Destruction Zeal, you may check the top 7 cards of your deck for Devourer of Planets Zeal or Galactic Beast Zeal and add one of them to your hand. After that, shuffle the rest back to your deck. So for this first skill, it's if you're fortunate enough to ride the Eye of Destruction Zeal on top, you'll be able to search the top 7 cards of your deck and possibly add either the Grade 2 Devourer of Planets Zeal or the Grade 3 Galactic Beast Zeal to your hand to increase your chances of riding this unit's main ride chain. And then the second skill of Larva Beast Zeal, when ridden on top of by any other Grade 1 besides Eye of Destruction Zeal, you may move Larva Beast from your soul to the rear guard. So this second skill more or less makes the Larva Beast Zeal a pseudo forerunner in the possibility you are unable to ride Eye of Destruction as your Grade 1. And with that, we've just about covered the starting unit. So next, let's go to the deck's Grade 1 lineup. And now the Grade 1 lineup. For the Grade 1s in this deck, we have 4 Eye of Destruction Zeals, 4 Eternity Chasers, and 2 Evolution Monster Devane. The Grade 1 Eye of Destruction Zeal. His skill is, as a Vanguard or a Rear Guard, when placed onto your field, you may check the top 7 cards of your deck for a Grade 2 or higher Zeal card and add it to your hand. So for Eye of Destruction's Zeal skill, it's a good way to add either the Devourer of Planets Zeal, Galactic Beast Zeal, or Neo Era Beast Zeals from your deck to your hand to secure for riding or for any other cost you wish to use for. The Grade 1 Eternity Chaser. His skills are, the first skill, when ridden on top of, if you pay the cost of discarding 1 card from your hand, you may reveal 1 Grade 3 in your hand. If you've done so, you may search your deck for any other Grade 3 besides the one you revealed and add it to your hand. So this first skill is a good way to secure more Grade 3s in your hand, specifically ones you wish to ride later when it's time to go to Grade 3 or to use for any other cost you wish to use it for later. And then the second skill of Eternity Chaser, as a rear guard in the back row, if your opponent's rear guard attacks and if it has 25,000 power or less, you may Soul Blast 1, retreat Eternity Chaser from your rear guard, and you may block the attack. So as for this second skill, Eternity Chaser can serve as more or less like a pseudo-perfect guard for rear guard attacks that have 25,000 power or less. The Grade 1 Evolution Monster Devane. His skill is, when called onto the rear guard circle, you may choose to pay the cost of sending one of your other rear guards into the soul. If you've done so, you may search your deck for a Zeal card that is the same grade as your current Vanguard and superior ride it as stand. After riding, you may superior call the Vanguard you were using before the Zeal to the rear guard, and then reduce one of your opponent's Vanguard's power by 3,000 power. So to sum it up, as long as you're willing to move another rear guard from your field to the soul, you may superior ride a Zeal that is the same grade as your Vanguard when activating this skill, superior call the previous Vanguard before you ride, and reduce your opponent's power by 3,000. Overall, Divine is a good card to have to use with cards like the Zeal series. And with that, we've just about covered the Grade 1 lineup. Next, let's go to the Grade 2 lineup. And now, the Grade 2 lineup. For the Grade 2s in this deck, we have 4. Devourer of Planets Zeal, 4. Endless Floats, and 3. Toxic Monster Gel Sludge. The Grade 2, Devourer of Planets Zeal, his skills are: the first skill, as a Vanguard or a Rearguard, once per turn, you may pay the cost of counterblasting 1 and resting 2 of your Rearguards. If you've done so, you may choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, reduce its power by 5,000 till the end of the turn, and after the activation of this skill, if you have the Eye of Destruction Zeal in your soul, you may draw a card. So as for this first skill, you can use your Vanguard or Rearguard Devour Planet Zeal to reduce your opponent's Vanguard power, and if you're fortunate enough to have Eye of Destruction Zeal in your soul, you can draw an extra card. So overall, this first skill is a good way to increase your attacks to hit and to increase your hand, if ever so slightly. And then the second skill of Devourer of Planets. When ridden on top of by a Grade 3, you may choose one of your opponent's Vanguards and reduce its power by 5,000 till the end of the turn. So like the first skill, this second skill focuses on reducing your opponent's Vanguard power, except this one can let you reduce it without paying any cost simply by just riding on top of this guy with a Grade 3. Overall, Devour Planets, great card for your Dimension Police decks. The Grade 2, Endless Float. His skill is, when ridden on top of, you may pay the cost of discarding 1 card from your hand. If you've done so, you may Superior Call Endless Float to your Rearguard from your soul, and your Vanguard which rode on top of Endless Float gets 10,000 power till the end of the turn. So as for this first skill, if you're willing to part with 1 card from your hand, you may Superior Call Endless Float from your soul to serve as a front row Rearguard, not to mention the 10,000 power he gets upon the riding. And then the second skill of Endless Float, as a Rearguard, on the turn that a Grade 3 was placed on your field while Endless Float is on your Rearguard, when Endless Float attacks, he gets plus 5,000 power, and then after the attack, if this skill was activated, you may retreat Endless Float from your Rearguard and draw a card. So as for the second skill, is if you've managed to meet the requirements, you can use Endless Float as a 15,000 power attacker from the front row, then draw an extra card after attacking simply by retreating Endless Float. The Grade 2, Toxic Monster, Gel Sludge. His skill is, when ridden or called, if your opponent is Grade 2 or higher, you may pay a cost of Soul Blasting 1. If you've done so, you may choose one of 2 effects. Your opponent must either Counter Blast 1 or let you draw 1 card, or he must Soul Blast 1 or reduce his own Vanguard's power by 5,000. So upon riding or calling Gel Sludge, you can choose one of these 2 effects, and your opponent must choose either to give you a benefit or give himself a penalty. And then there's an additional ability to this skill. Upon paying the original Soul Blast cost for Gel Sludge's skill, if your opponent's Vanguard is Grade 3 or higher, both effects are in effect. So this way your opponent has to either Counterblast 1 or let you draw 1, and either Soul Blast 1 or weaken his own Vanguard's power by 5,000. So despite Gel Sludge's power only being 9,000, his skill more or less makes up for the slight lack of power. So overall, Gel Sludge is still a pretty good card to use in the V Standard and Premium formats. And with that, we've just about covered the Grade 2 lineup. So next, let's get to the Grade 3 lineup. Now, the Grade 3 lineup. For the Grade 3s in this deck, we have 4 Original Saber Zeros, 4 Neo Era Beast Zeals, and 4 Galactic Beast Zeals. Sorry about that. Then the grade 3 original saver Zero. His skills are: as a Vanguard, when attacking or being ridden on top of, you may pay the cost of Counter Blast 1 and Soul Blast 1. If you've done so, you may choose one of your opponent's units, and for till the end of that turn, its power becomes 0. So as for this first skill, when your Vanguard original saver Zero attacks or is ridden on top of by paying a Counter Blast 1 and Soul Blast 1, one of your opponent's units on their field has becomes 0 power, making it easier for your Vanguard and Rearguard attacks to hit either their Vanguard or Rearguard. Then the second skill of original saver Zero. As a Vanguard, once per turn, when being attacked, you may pay the cost of discarding a grade 3 from your hand. If done so, during that battle, the attacking unit's critical becomes 0. So like the first skill, this second skill is a reduction skill, but more defensive focused. So by simply discarding a grade 3, you may reduce the opponent's attacking unit's critical to 0, making its attack ineffective on your Vanguard. So overall, original saver Zero, despite having only 0 base power, his skills make up for it. And since both skills in terms of offense and defense can reduce either the opponent's power or critical to 0, overall, original saver Zero, good card to have as your Vanguard in both V standard and premium formats. The grade 3 New Era Beast Zeal. His skills are: the first skill, Legion. For those of you who've kept up with the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game since the original series, you should know what Legion is. When both players' Vanguards are grade 3 or higher, you may send 4 cards from your drop zone back to your deck, search your deck for your Vanguard's intended Legion mate, Legion it, and shuffle your deck. So for New Era Beast Zeal's Legion mate, it's Galactic Beast Zeal. Then the second skill of New Era Beast Zeal, as a Vanguard, you may Counter Blast 1, and then when a card was put in your damage zone, if your Vanguard is in Legion, you may pay the cost of either Counter Blast 1, and then you may choose one of your opponent's units, and it gets minus 1000 power for each card in either your Vanguard circle or Rearguard circle. So this is more of a defensive skill. If your Vanguard's already in Legion, if you've had a card placed in your damage zone, by merely paying a Counter Blast of 1, you can weaken your opponent's units by either 1000 power for each card in your Vanguard circle or for each card in your Rearguard circle. So ideally either 2000 power or 5000 power, depending on how you fill out your field. Then the third skill of New Era Beast Zeal, as a Vanguard, when this unit's attack hits a opponent's Vanguard, and if the opponent's Vanguard's power is 8000 power or less, you may Soul Charge 1 and Counter Charge 1. So this third skill is a on-hit skill. As long as your Vanguard New Era Beast Zeal's attack hits, and if your opponent's Vanguard is 8000 power or less, you can then Soul Charge 1 and Counter Charge 1, which is a great effect to have. And then the grade 3 Galactic Beast Zeal. His skills are: the first skill, as a Vanguard or a Rearguard, when placed on the field from your hand, you may superior call the top card of your deck to the Rearguard circle. And then, if Galactic Beast Zeal is on your Vanguard when using this first skill, you may reduce your opponent's Vanguard's power by 5000 for each imaginary gift on their field. So ideally this first skill, when you choosing to ride or call Galactic Beast Zeal from your hand, not only do you get to superior call the top card of your deck to your own Rearguard, if you've chosen to ride Galactic Beast Zeal when using the first skill, if your opponent has either imaginary gifts, forces, excels, or protect 2s in their field, your opponent's Vanguard will lose 5000 power for each one of them. And then the second skill of Galactic Beast Zeal, as a Vanguard, once per turn, at the cost of Counter Blasting 1 and sending one or more of your own Rearguards to your soul, you may choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and it gets minus 10,000 power. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher when using this skill, and if you have the Devourer of Planets Zeal in your soul, then your Vanguard Galactic Beast Zeal gets +1 drive for every 2 cards put into your soul for this original cost. So as for the second skill, if you choose to counterblast one and choose any number of rear guards to move in your soul, you can reduce your opponent's Vanguard's power by 10,000, and if you're fortunate enough to have a Devour Planet Zeal in the soul, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher, you'll get your Vanguard will get +1 drive for every 2 cards moved into the soul for the third skill's cost. So overall, these are the grade 3s in the deck. A original Saber 0 to attack with or be ridden on top of, and the 2 versions of Zeal to perform Legion with. And with that, next let's go to the deck's trigger lineup. And now for the trigger lineup. For the triggers in this deck, we have 4 Quake Being, Namazaru, critical triggers. 4 Defilement Monster, the Blue Blast, critical triggers. 4 Diamond Aces, draw triggers. And 4 Ultimate Salvation Combination, Adam Bullion, heal triggers. The grade 0 critical trigger, Quake Being, Namazaru. His skill is, as a rear guard, Generation Break 1. When your Vanguard attacks, you may move Namazaru from your rear guard into the soul. By doing so, your attacking Vanguard gets +10,000 power till the end of the battle. So as for this unit skill, it's a good way to restock your soul and give your attacking Vanguard +10,000 power till during that battle. The grade 0 critical trigger, Defilement Monster, the Blubla. His skill is, when discarded from your hand for a stride cost, the Blubla becomes treated as a grade 3 during that time. So the Blubla serves as a stride fodder for the Dimension Police series. The grade 0 draw trigger, Diamond Ace, Sentinel Perfect Guard. Like any other Perfect Guard in the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game, the activation and skill is the same. When used to guard with, you may discard a card from your hand and that attack is blocked. So this, like all Perfect Guards in the V standard format, it's one of the best parts about Diamond Ace is as a draw trigger, a trigger unit. So unlike G standard and D standard formats where the Perfect Guard is a normal unit that fills up your grade 1 lineup, having a Perfect Guard in your trigger lineup will save you up the space that's normally used for the grade 1 Perfect Guards for other cards that will help in your offensive and defensive strategies in the whole game. The grade 3 heal trigger, Ultimate Salvation Combination, Adam Bullion, Heal Guardian. His skills are, the first skill, when used to guard with, if you have not yet ridden to grade 3 yet, you may choose one of 2 effects. The first effect, your Vanguard gets +10,000 power till the end of the turn. So for this first effect, it's a good way to stop your opponent from rushing you too early by having many attacks from their front row early on. And then the second effect, you may also reduce the attacking unit's critical by 2 till the end of the battle. Like the first skill, it's mainly meant to stop your opponent from pushing you to too much damage early in the game. And then the second skill of Adam Bullion, when called onto the rearguard circle, if you have no cards in your damage zone, you may place the top card of your deck face up onto your damage zone. So for this second skill, it's mainly used to counteract against opponents who like to use the damage denial strategy. The damage denial strategy is where an opponent avoids attacking your Vanguard early on to prevent you from having access to any of your skills that require counterblasts. So thankfully, thanks to these Heal Guardians, the annoyance of the damage denial strategy is not that effective anymore. And you have the peace of mind of fighting the way you want to as long as you've managed to secure it in your hand. And with that, we've just about covered this deck's trigger lineup. The trigger lineup is 8 critical triggers, 4 draw triggers, and 4 heal triggers. And with that, we've just about covered the main deck as well. So next, let's head on to the deck's G zone. And now for the G zone. For the cards in the G zone, we're starting with the G units. For the G units of this deck, we have 2 Cosmo Winger, Unibird Galaxy, 4 Strongest Command Chief, Final Dimex, DX, 4 Heatwave Beast, Geomaglass, and 2 Dark Superhuman, Omega. The Grade 4 G unit, Cosmo Winger, Unibird Galaxy. Its skills are, the first skill, as a Vanguard, this unit gets plus 10,000 power for each card in total among your damage zone and rear guards. So as long as you don't mind having a lot of cards in your damage zone and manage to secure a bunch of rear guards, Unibird Galaxy can make a very high power Vanguard by getting plus 10,000 power for each card in your damage zone and rear guards. And the best part is the plus 10,000 is stackable, so the more rear guards and damage cards you have, the more power you can add to him. And the second skill of Unibird Galaxy, Burst, as a Vanguard, once per turn. When this unit attacks, you may turn a card from your G zone face up. If the cost has been paid, then if this attacking unit's power is 50,000 or more, it gets plus 1 critical until the end of battle. And if the attacking unit's power is 100,000 or more, it gets plus 2 drive. So overall, it makes Unibird Galaxy a very powerful Vanguard. Since the first skill lets you stack huge amounts of power, the second skill will benefit from him since you can get plus 1 critical and have a total of 5 drive checks, making Unibird Galaxy a very great G unit to have if you wish to focus everything on the Vanguard. The Grade 4 G unit, Strongest Command Chief, Final Dimex DX. Its skill is, as a Vanguard, when it attacks, you may turn a card from your G zone face up and place all of your rested rear guards into the soul. If the cost has been paid, reveal 7 cards from the top of your deck and call up to the same number of cards as the number of face up cards in your G zone to the rear guard circles in order of highest power to lowest. After that, shuffle your deck. And then, if the number of cards you placed in your soul for this unit's cost was 4 or more, then all of your units, Vanguard and rear guard, will get plus 10,000 power and plus 1 critical until the end of the turn. So with Final Dimex DX, it's a good way to give yourself more attacks after you attack with rear guards. You can then place them to the soul. Then using Final Dimex DX's skill, you can superior call new rear guards to attack with. And then, as long as you manage to place a large number of cards into your soul for this unit's cost, your Vanguard and all of your newly called rear guards will get plus 10,000 power and plus 1 critical, making Final Dimex DX a good card to have if you wish to rush your opponent with a larger number of attacks. The Grade 4 G unit, Heatwave Beast, Geomaglass. Its skills are, the first skill, as a Vanguard or in the G zone, if face up, all of your Grade 3 rear guards and guardians get plus 5,000 power, plus 5,000 shield, and intercept. So if you're the type who likes to play a lot of Grade 3s in your deck, if you call them onto the rear guard circle, they get plus 5,000 power, plus 5,000 shield and intercept. And in the guardian circle is to get the plus 5,000 shield. So overall, your Grade 3 rear guards in the front row can give you a huge boost in power and defensive ability, as long as you manage to strike Geomaglass your first G unit, or if you use another skill to flip him face up in the G zone, making Geomaglass a great card to have in either the Vanguard or G zone for decks that specialize in having a large number of Grade 3s. And the second skill of Geomaglass, as a Vanguard, when this unit attacks, you may counterblast 1 and turn a card from your G zone face up. If the cost has been paid, look at the top 7 cards of your deck and call 2 cards among them to the rear guard circle, shuffle your deck, and this unit gets plus 1 critical until the end of battle for each of your Grade 3 units. So like the first skill, it specializes having a bunch of Grade 3s. As long as you don't mind counterblasting 1, as long as you flip over the top 7 cards of your deck and call 2 new rear guards upon them, you can get a 2 new set of rear guards to attack. At the same time, your Vanguard gets a huge amount of critical for each Grade 3 in your field, so Geomaglass himself will have a better chance of finishing off your opponent, but also you have an extra attack or 2 up on your way to finish off your opponent. The Grade 4 G unit, Dark Superhuman Omega. When placed on the Vanguard circle, you may counterblast 2 and soul blast 1. If the cost has been paid, choose one of your rear guards and place it into your soul. then choose all of your units on the opponent's front row and reduce their power by the original power of the rear guard that was placed into your Vanguard soul for this unit's cost. So for Dark Superhuman Omega, as long as you don't mind paying its hefty cost, depending on what rear guard you place into your soul by this unit's cost, you can reduce all of your opponent's front row units' power by that unit's power, so making it a good way to give your Vanguard and all of your rear guards a better shot of finishing off your opponent, or at least striking a decent number of damage. And with that, we just about finished the deck's the G units. So next, let's get on to the G Guardians. And now for the G Guardians. For the G Guardians of this deck, we have 2 Giant Armored Beast Garagamelgos and 2 Great Galactic Beast Zeal. The Grade 4 G Guardian Giant Armored Beast Garagamelgos. Its skill is, when placed on the Guardian Circle, you may Soul Blast 1. If the cost isn't paid, then choose up to 2 Grade 3 normal units from your drop zone and place into your hand. And then this unit gets plus 5,000 shield until the end of the battle for each card placed in your hand by this unit's skill. So as long as you've managed to secure a decent number of Grade 3 normal units in your drop zone, Garagamelgos can at most serve as a 25,000 point shield on his own, making him a very powerful defensive unit if you don't have that many cards to guard with. The Grade 4 G Guardian Great Galactic Beast Zeal. Its skill is, when placed on the Guardian Circle, you may Soul Blast 1. If the cost has been paid, then you can choose one of your opponent's units and it gets minus 5,000 power until the end of the battle. And then, if the number of cards in your damage zone is more than your opponent's, you may Counter Blast 1, then choose one of your own Vanguards and it gets plus 5,000 power until the end of the turn. So overall, Great Galactic Beast is a good way to reduce one of your opponent's attacking units' power, as well as giving your Vanguard a little extra power, making this a great defensive card for the entire turn during your opponent's battle phase. As long as you don't mind Soul Blasting 1 and Counter Blasting 1 and having more damage than your opponent, then this card will be a great card to have for your Dimension Police decks. And with that, we just about covered the deck's G Guardian lineup. And now I've just about covered the deck list of cards and their effects. So next I'm going to explain the main play style meant to be used in this deck. With this deck, it's ideal to ride Original Saver Zero first, and then riding on top of him the new Era Beast Zeal, using his skill to Legion the Galactic Beast Zeal. So you may use Original Saver Zero's skill of being ridden on top of to reduce your opponent's power to 0, then use the new Era Beast Zeal to Legion the Galactic Beast Zeal. But unfortunately, you will not be able to use the first skill of Galactic Beast Zeal if you've chosen to Legion it, since Galactic Beast Zeal's first skill requires you place him from hand. Since Legion is placed from deck, you cannot use the first skill, but then there's the second skill of Galactic Beast Zeal. By choosing to Counterblast 1 and sending rear guards to the soul, you may reduce your opponent's Vanguard's power by 10,000, which will work well if you're the type to attack from your whole field. So despite having some limitations as a Legion mate, it still works well with the Vanguard's new Era Beast Zeal's Legion mate. And hopefully you can also use other cards to help you in your overall fighting strategy, like using the Eternity Chaser to serve as a power boost from the back row and as a pseudo perfect guard as well. Not to mention, you also have the option of using Evolution Monster Devane to Superior Ride Galactic New Era Beast Zeal on top of Original Saver Zero, which goes along with the main play style of riding New Era Beast on top of Original Saver Zero. And then using other cards to support your Vanguard in the whole field. So like I just mentioned, the main strategy is first to ride Original Saver Zero, then ride New Air Beast on top of him, either naturally or by using Devane skill to Superior Ride, and then Legioning the Galactic Beast Zeal with New Air Beast Zeal, you combining both their skills to help your Vanguard weaken your opponent and making all your attacks have a better chance of hitting. Then you also have the option of striding the G units, Geomaglus or DX if you wish to use striding instead of legioning with this deck. But overall, all this deck's abilities, which Legion, Superior Ride, reduce opponent's Vanguard to 0 by riding on top of it, and the G units, which focus on having more grade 3s in the field, which works great. So that just about covered the deck's main playstyle. So overall, I've just covered the deck list and card effects and the playstyle meant to be used this deck. So first off, I want to say thank you to the viewers for watching today's video, and to please stay tuned for more videos I plan to upload again in the near future. I also hope you show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to my videos and channel. And with that, I say goodbye and see you all soon.